We begin this hour with the tragic shooting in Minnesota. 2 children are dead after a shooter opened fire during morning mass at a Catholic school in South Minneapolis Wednesday. Those victims, described by their principal as 2 angels, were killed while sitting in church pews. They were just 8 and 10 years old. Officials say at least 17 other people were injured, 14 of them children, ranging in age from 6 to 15.
The shooting happened at the Annunciation Catholic School, which just had its first day back on Monday. Police say the shooter, 23-year-old Robin Westman, died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Trump called on the nation to join him in, quote, prayer for everyone involved in a post to Truth Social yesterday. But Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey is dismissing remarks like these as his community grapples with this tragedy.
These were Minneapolis families. These were American families. And the amount of pain that they are suffering right now is extraordinary. And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying.
NBC News law enforcement analyst Evie Pamporis is standing by with a deeper look into the investigation of this tragedy, along with a father whose 11-year-old daughter survived the shooting. First, though, we get to NBC News correspondent Jay Gray, who is on the ground in Minneapolis with the latest. Jay, good morning. Thank you for joining us. I mean, like we just mentioned, just the first week of school for these kids. Tell us about how this tragedy unfolded yesterday.
Yeah, Savannah, we're just ahead of 24 hours out from when this happened. It was the traditional back-to-school mass, the K through 8th grade elementary Catholic school here inside the church that is just behind us when shots shattered the stained glass windows. Dozens of rounds fired from the outside in after the suspect had barricaded the doors so no one could get out. As you talk about 2 students sitting in the church pews, murdered, 8 and 10 years old, 14 other students injured, as well as 3 parishioners in their 80s. This morning, 5 of those injured still in the hospital recovering after surgery. All of those who were wounded expected to make full recoveries as the investigation really ramps up. The church and school still obviously locked down this investigation. We are told that includes federal agents at this point, is going to be long, very detailed. They are trying to understand how and why all of this happened.
Jay, as you mentioned, there are 17 people injured, mostly children, some of them critically. The older people who were injured, not teachers, but parishioners who were in their 80s. What more are we learning about some of the injuries and some of the response to treating those in such a quick fashion yesterday?
It was amazing to see how quickly all of this unfolded and how quickly they were transported to hospitals. And a part of the help here to help those who were injured was from this neighborhood. This church and school, really the anchor of an established neighborhood here where many of the residents go to church here. Many of them went to the school and they rushed to the scene just after 8:30 in the morning here to help in any way they could hold on to some of these children as the ambulances arrived, and they arrived very quickly here. It was also training, as we heard from some of the students that helped them to survive here as they dove under the pews, covered their heads. They said they had trained for this in the classroom, but never in the church. Still, that instinct, that training apparently kicked in. As for the condition of those 6 still in the hospital, they are in critical condition, but again, expected to fully recover physically, Joe, from what happened here.
Jay, excuse me, we also just played their Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, this emotional speech from him yesterday. We've been hearing from community members, of course, how difficult this is. Tell us more about how this community is doing this morning.
They're very stunned and still in shock, as you can imagine, and how many of us are right now with what's happened here. I've seen early this morning, we're starting to see the sun come up now, but early this morning, long before sunrise, there were people from this community out and just had to be here by the church, staring. You could tell that they're still very frustrated and emotional about what's happened here and really can't wrap their head around what's happened to their community at this point. They are vowing, as is the principal of the Catholic school here, Annunciation, to come back, to not let this ruin what they say is an important part of their lives, an important part of this community, this school and church, and leaning very heavily right now, Savannah, on their faith and something they say will help them to get through what's an unthinkable tragedy.
Absolutely. Jay Gray on the ground for us in Minneapolis. Thank you so much.
Let's bring in Vincent Francois. His 11-year-old daughter, Chloe, is a sixth grader at the Annunciation School. She survived the shooting. Vincent, good morning. We're grateful your daughter is safe physically. I can't imagine how you and your family are feeling this morning. Tell us a little bit about how your daughter is doing in the wake of this.
Well, good morning. Thank you for having me. Well, she's sleeping right now, which is good. She went to sleep. We were worried about that, but tonight she had a good night right now. I mean, we yesterday gathered with a lot of family, so that helped out. But when we got home, we could see the fear again. I mean, I can barely go outside the house without her worrying. We're about 3 blocks from the school. And so she's always worried now about outside. So,
Vincent, you mentioned you live so close to the school. Can you just tell us what those first moments were like when you heard, of course, what's every parent's worst nightmare, that there was a shooting at your daughter's school and you're just blocks away? What happened?
It's just completely unreal. So we walk our daughter to school every morning. And this time I was with my wife. We went to get a coffee. On our way back, the kids were going into the church, and I got a call, so I had to go to do something. And then, about 20 minutes later, I get a text from my wife saying there is a shooting. And so I drove back, and I just tried to stay calm. And as I drove and parked to my house and start to walk toward the school, I got a feel that things were pretty bad. Fortunately, our daughter was okay. My wife texted me just before I got back to the school. And we got, talked to officer, and they channeled us to a family gathering into the gymnasium. And there were all the family, all our friends with all the kids. We kind of got a bit of a news. At that time, we didn't know our poor 2 little kid who didn't make it. And then they transfer us to the auditorium just to do a count. And then we went back home, and that's where we found out about the more death. And it's just tragic, as the reporters say. It's a great little community. It's almost a village in a city. The city of Minneapolis is a great city. The Annunciation people are great. I'm not, it is a Catholic-based a church, school, but I'm a Catholic, but I don't practice that much, and it's very open mind. It's something that we are so fortunate to have, and a sick person break our dream.
I know you mentioned your daughter doesn't want to go outside right now. I know you're also from France. What are some of the other things that she has said to you over the last 24 hours, just about her experience and her thoughts moving forward?
So once we got out of the school, and to back it up, we were in France for vacation to see my family, and we kind of have joking mentioned one day we're going to move there, and she was crying in France. But once we got out of school, she said, I want to move back to France. I don't want to go back to school. All the kids don't want to go to the church. And then, she just said that she thought she was going to die on that day. And so it's rough. It's rough. And she's having a guilt trip to have not done enough. And so we have a new journey to go on, and we're going to figure it out. There is a great community, so we're going to have to stay positive. And right now, the approach is 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time, and we will figure it out. But we are all, as parents, we are grateful. Our kids are here, and we're all worried about their mindset right now.
You mentioned that great community. Tell us what it's like having each other for support. What will this be like to heal together?
I mean, so yesterday, about 3 hours, we back, there was already text coming up and family gathers at people's house. So it really felt good. It felt like we're all in it together. We're just not alone, It's like the Liverpool football club team. We never are going to walk alone, And so having that support is fantastic, knowing we can call each other. It's, and I'm sure a lot of people in America went through what we're going through. Fortunately, a year ago, I told my wife, every time we drop our kids at school, we just never know if they're going to be back. And it just did happen to us. And everybody needs to know that every morning you drop your kids at school, you're not sure if they're going to be back because something is wrong with the culture, and nobody do anything. Everybody going to go pray and thinking of us, but it's not going to fix the problem here. And our mayor has been fantastic, and I totally agree with him. And I don't know, I really don't know what to do, and so we will see. Will we be here in America in 1 year? I don't know. Maybe we're back in France. I don't know. Right now it's all about our daughter and whatever she wants. She just really mentioned last night, she doesn't want to go back to the school. She doesn't want to go back to the church. So right now emotions are really high. And hopefully, we're waiting for her to wake up this morning and see how is she. And my wife is very strong. But like I said, the community, yesterday I was walking my dog and people just stopped the car, hug me. It's like such a great feeling to knowing we're not alone.
The world's watching right now, Vincent. What do you want them to know?
I want them to know that, like I said, first, every time you bring your kids, you don't know if you're going to get back. What can we do? I mean, and tell you the world, like in France, my friend, even in Europe, they're scratching their head and they're like, well, what's going on with America? What's the matter with you people? And what's going on with this gun culture? I have no idea, but you can't even explain them, and I love America. I love France, but I'm just going to be one another parents, say, we got to figure out this gun culture. It's not about being against gun. It's about the access to it. We all know that. Everybody know that. The Democrat don't do anything to it. The Republican don't even less. It's like they all worry about getting reelected and just what counts. And so, I don't know. I just, people just know that America is not well seen for the rest of the world. They think we are crazy.
Vincent, we appreciate your time this morning. Please give our best to your daughter, Chloe, and your family, and know that we're thinking about your community. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us this morning.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that I was able to talk. Thank you.
Let's dig a little deeper into this unfolding investigation. Police say they are poring over disturbing videos posted just before the attack as new details about the shooter and her connection to the church begin to emerge. NBC's Maggie Vespa has more.
We're learning more about the killer who went on that twisted rampage, gunning down children as they prayed in their church pews. Police identifying the shooter as 23-year-old Robin Westman with no criminal history.
At this stage, we believe that the shooter had acted alone. There is no indication of other suspects directly involved in carrying out this attack.
Police say they're executing search warrants at 4 locations tied to the shooter.
As to the weapons used to perpetrate this horrific attack, there was a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. All 3 had been lawfully purchased by the shooter.
The FBI saying it's investigating the mass shooting as an act of domestic terrorism and a hate crime targeting Catholics. According to court documents obtained by NBC News, the shooter was granted a legal name change to Robin in 2020. The documents saying Westman identifies as a female and wants her name to reflect that identification. Her mother appeared to sign those documents. Police say before carrying out the massacre, Robin Westman posted a series of disturbing videos.
We're also aware of a manifesto that the shooter had timed to be released on YouTube. This manifesto appeared to show him at the scene and included some disturbing writings.
One video showing a handwritten floor plan of a church and several weapons. On one of them, a message threatening to kill President Trump, plus many anti-Semitic slogans and references to the Catholic Church. Police say they have not identified a motive, but are studying those videos.
It's been taken down, and our investigators are going through that to try and develop a motive from that.
So as you just heard there, no motive, but NBC News has uncovered a possible connection between the shooter and this church. In short, it appears the shooter's mother used to work here. The Church of Annunciation posting on Facebook back in 2021, congratulating Mary Grace Westman on her retirement after 5 years here. NBC News has reached out to her as well as other family members of the shooter. So far, no response. Back to you.
All right, Maggie, thank you. Well, let's get more on this with Evie Pampora. She's an NBC News law enforcement analyst and a former Secret Service special agent. Good morning. Thank you, as always, for joining us, helping us try to make sense of the senseless. As we mentioned, the FBI is investigating the shooting as an act of domestic terrorism and a hate crime targeting Catholics. What do those details mean for how this is investigated? What does that mean for the FBI and law enforcement moving forward through this?
So the U.S. Secret Service used to work with the DOE on threat assessments. Actually, they would go to the Secret Service and say, could you help us identify shooters in advance? How do we mitigate these things? So a couple of things. The one main thing is the connection of the shooter to the school. I think we're going to get more information. I don't think it's going to end with just the mom being connected. So my interest would be, did he or she go to that school? What interactions they have with regard to the weapon. And there's just a little bit of a checklist going on. During the press conference, the chief said that the weapons were purchased recently. So when you hear that, okay, what happened recently that made this individual decide to purchase this weapon, specifically probably to commit this act? The other thing that stands a little bit is there were 3 different weapons, rifle, shotgun, and handgun, and all 3 were utilized. And so there's a little bit of that scenario. I don't know if there's, again, I'm speculating, any media influence or anything like that, video gaming, because they always transition in weapons. So those are some things they're going to look at. Mental health history, you have to look at that. There might be some mental history, some recordings, some data documents because of the change from Robert to Robin, so there might be a trail. Behavior. He communicated. This is another common thing we see with individuals commit mass shootings. Mass shootings like these, they will communicate. And so the individual also did that. So these are like the things that you would look out for. The other thing that struck me very interesting, it was an outside attack. When you look at school shootings, usually the shooter goes in and surprises. So when you look at the data, the collective data for shootings, they're typically inside, not outside. The other thing that's really interesting that fits a pattern, morning. Most of these school shootings happen in the morning. This also happened in the morning. So again, I'm just kind of ticking off the things that I would be looking at. Again, going back to the shooter, search history. Where they're finding weapons in other locations. They said 3 residences, so that makes me inquire which residences, right? Is it mother, father, the individual? Did that person have their own place? Was it a extended relative? Did anyone not see these? There's a massive amount of weapons and ammo that we've seen in some of these videos that have been taken down. How did no one notice this, right? How is this behavior hidden? What were the signs? You don't do this overnight. This never happens overnight. There is a progression to something like this. And so it's very concerning. Why are these indicators being missed?
We only have a few seconds here, but as you mentioned, there are these 3 weapons. They were legally purchased. Minnesota has some pretty strong gun laws, which sort of begs the question, when you look at the mental health history that we at least see unfolding online, what as a society can we do to try and prevent things like this from happening?
With weapons, it's difficult. 1, he has no criminal history, so there's nothing there. 2, there has to be, someone has to say this person is of imminent harm to themselves or another person in order for a weapon to be taken from you. And so when nothing has happened, you don't know that this person's going to do that. So that's where it becomes tricky. Now, if there's documents that reveal anything, that will lead to maybe further investigation or insight. But as of right now, I don't know anything.
All right, Evie Pampora, we always appreciate your analysis. Thank you so much.
There's a big shakeup at the top of the federal government's leading public health agency. The CDC director was fired after just weeks on the job after clashing with HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Yeah, Director Susan Monarez was fired by the Trump administration after refusing to step down from the position amid political pressure. Monarez's lawyers say she was let go after refusing to, quote, rubber stamp unscientific, reckless directives and fire dedicated health experts. At least 4 other top officials have announced their resignations.
NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba joins us now from Washington with the latest. Monica, good morning. So the White House was quick to let Monarez go after she refused to resign from her position. This is not a Biden holdover. She's only been on the job about a month. So what led to her firing? What are we hearing from the Trump administration?
And it's not over yet, guys. There's still a back and forth over whether she is technically still the director or whether she has to be fired directly by President Trump. That is what her lawyers are saying overnight. They are claiming that she is still in this position because she was a Senate-confirmed appointee, that it has to be the president himself who either by letter or by phone call or a meeting actually does terminate her. It's interesting because the White House, for their part, put out a statement overnight saying that they believe this matter had been resolved, that they had let her know, though it was a White House official in the personnel office and not the president himself, that she had been terminated from this position. So this is just another example of a bit of a clash that's being set up here, and one that, again, through her attorneys, indicates there could be further back and forth and maybe even potentially something legal here. But it really speaks to the issue that you pointed to in the introduction, which is that there is a disagreement on policy matters here and on some of the decisions. But it is really noteworthy that she had just been in this position for about a month, and the fact that she went through that entire Senate confirmation process, and now they would have to potentially do that again for whoever might replace her here, guys.
Monica, another agency is also experiencing a shakeup this morning. Nearly 24 FEMA employees have been put on administrative leave. This is coming after they signed an open letter that was criticizing the administration's disaster preparedness and response capabilities. I mean, just the amount of severe weather that we have seen over the summer. We are in the middle of hurricane season. Really, it's just getting started. That sounds like a concern. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, no doubt. And actually, the letter spells out some of the concerns that really came from the origin of the rehaul of FEMA more than 20 years ago, which is, of course, this week, the anniversary of devastating Hurricane Katrina. And so some of these employees brought that up. But those 21 or so that have been put on leave, they actually signed their names onto that letter. And that's why that decision was taken. There were actually more than 180 others who also signed on or said they were feeling that they wanted to be a part of that and contribute to that sentiment, but not all of them did so by exactly their name. So the other idea here is that there could be others who could be put on leave, but who directly it was impacting the ones who signed it and were most vocal about this. But we've seen so much turnover at this agency that, remember, President Trump has said he might want to get rid of entirely. There's a review board that's looking at that process that may do that and then would shift the responsibility for these kinds of disasters to the states and not to the federal government. So that is still a live issue as well.
All right, Monica Alba in Washington. Monica, thank you.
Now it's time for a check on your morning news now weather with meteorologist Angie Lassman.
Hey, Angie, good morning.
Hi, guys. Good morning. We're waking up to some wet weather and, unfortunately, some flooding concerns across the middle of the country. Notice all of the flood watches that we see up, but more importantly, those flash flood warnings that are up for places like Little Rock this morning, stretching back into northeastern Oklahoma and in the southern portions of Kansas right now. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of those popping up here as the rest of the morning goes on and this moisture starts to shift a little farther to the south. Anywhere from Kansas to Mississippi is where we'll be watching for the heaviest of those downpours, with some of this rain falling on areas that are already saturated from earlier morning rain. So we're going to watch the downpours stretching across the southeast into parts of the plains. This is going to be something that, again, prompts more of these flood alerts as the day goes on. And then, unfortunately, this front kind of just sticks around. It becomes stationary. We see it sitting along the Gulf Coast, and that means more of that heavy rain on tap, but moving essentially into parts of the deep south. Otherwise, it's the late August cool temperatures that get your attention. Not quite where we should be for this time of year, but still pleasant nonetheless. Upper 70s in New York City. We've got low 80s for Lexington, Oklahoma City. Some of these numbers running below normal. not just today, tomorrow, but even into this upcoming weekend. Temperatures are fairly mild, but still pleasant for most folks as they head out for that holiday weekend. Speaking of that, look at your travel impacts for tomorrow. A couple of spots I want you to be aware of: the southeast, the northeast, specifically New England, and then parts of the mountains and plains. We could still see some thunderstorms. So if you're heading out on the roads or to the airports, I think a couple of spots to watch: Houston to New Orleans, down through the Sunshine State. Boston will be another location to keep a close eye on your travel impacts for, and Salt Lake City and Denver as well.
Could be a lot worse.
It could be a lot worse. I know you just mentioned we're in the middle of hurricane season. Oftentimes we're talking about that for this holiday weekend. So thankful nonetheless.
We'll take it.
Thanks, Angie.
You got it.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.